Not too long ago, during one of the Dharma talks from the weekly Zazenkai, Jundo brought up the metaphor of the old mirror that's used a lot in our Zen writings. The topic of his talk was how everything that exists, whether it's good, bad, we judge it as good or bad, sad, happy, beneficial, not beneficial, wanted, unwanted, everything fits inside this old mirror. And that talk made me think about the metaphor of the old mirror and what it means. And also the idea of polishing that mirror, which is also a metaphor that exists within our teachings and writings in Zen. And so let me begin by just clarifying that the metaphor of the old mirror refers to our true nature, the original mind, our Buddha nature, the enlightened mind. That's what it's a metaphor for. So in that sense, the original mind, our Buddha nature, accepts and holds everything. Not just those things that we discriminate and judge as good or bad. So that was Jundo's point, that rejecting something and accepting something are all based on discrimination. But reality includes everything. So that old ancient mirror reflects everything. But investigating on the topic of the old mirror, I landed on different things. I looked into the Precious Mirror Samadhi, which is one of the famous writings, poems. It's part of even the Soto Zen liturgy in a lot of temples that have, bigger ceremonies. Excuse me. But of course, I had to land on Master Dogen. He speaks extensively on the topic of the old mirror, so much so that he has an entire fascicle in the Shobogenzo that is called the old mirror. And he dives into this metaphor and tears it apart, picks it apart, and tries to breathe the life of understanding into this concept of the ancient mirror. So the fascicle is long and it's very interesting and it's a good read. But I want to focus on the last part of it. At the end of it, Master Dogen goes to a koan that we know very well, or at least we're familiar with, or some of us maybe just heard about it, but it's not a totally unknown story. Excuse me. And I really wanted to look at this koan together and do a little bit of that picking apart of it to see what it says about the old mirror. And so before he even gets to the koan, Master Dogen sort of leads the discussion there with a couple of references to it. He says, you polish a mirror and make it a mirror. You polish a tile and make it a mirror. You polish a tile and make it a tile. You polish a mirror and make it a tile. That's a lot of repetitions. Also, you polish but you do not accomplish. Or you accomplish but do not polish. These are all works in the house of Buddha ancestors. These are Master Dogen's words, and these lead up to him actually citing the koan. He hasn't mentioned the koan yet here, but he does bring up tile, polishing, and mirror. So what he's doing here basically is wordplay, which is something that he does very, very often. And he's playing with the ideas of enlightened mind, deluded mind. practice realization. He's playing with absolute and relative in these seemingly opposing concepts that he presents. He says, you polish a mirror and make it a mirror. Polishing refers to practice. So he's talking about practicing. And the mirror being the original mind, the enlightened mind, our Buddha nature. He says, sometimes we polish the mirror and make it a mirror. Sometimes we realize that the mirror is there, and yet we continue to practice. Sometimes we realize that, yes, we practice and realize. We see things as they are. We understand our Buddha nature, yet we continue to practice. So we realize that the mirror is always there. We don't bring it into existence. He continues, sometimes you polish a tile and you make it a mirror. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we think, I'm a deluded human being. I cannot possibly attain enlightenment, right? And yet we practice, and when we practice, we realize enlightened and deluded is just two sides of the same thing. There is no enlightened without deluded, and there's no deluded without enlightened. The same way there is no day without night. Day is the absence of darkness, and darkness is the absence of light. But they're not two separate things. So same here, Master Dogen says, sometimes we practice looking at ourselves as deluded human beings. And we realize as we practice as the Buddha. We sit zazen as the Buddha. So we dust off the mirror and it reflects clearly. He says, sometimes you polish a tile and make it a tile. Sometimes we practice, but we somehow manage to deepen our delusion. There are so many ways we can do that. But also sometimes, although we practice, we continue to keep in mind that we are subject to our senses, and the experience of the world that we have is still one that comes from our senses. And so we are subject to delusion. A tile is a tile. We don't change that. He continues, you polish a mirror and make it a tile. This is an important part, right? He says, sometimes you have a glimpse into this wholeness, oneness, into our Buddha nature. You have that aha moment. And because of that aha moment, call it whatever you want, kensho, realization. Because of that, then we chase that. We want it back. We try to verbalize it. We try to grasp at it, latch on to it. So we completely lose it. We delude ourselves more. Enlightenment is not gained or lost, but it's not permanent. One can be deluded again. And sometimes we do that to ourselves. Sometimes, as Master Dogen says, we polish a mirror and make it a tile. He continues, also, you polish but don't accomplish. Sometimes we practice, but maybe we're missing a little bit of understanding. Maybe we're not quite there in our practice. We don't quite understand what it means to engage in practice realization. Or he says, you accomplish but don't polish. Sometimes realization happens without efforts, without practicing, without doing anything specifically. There's all these stories out in the sutras back in the old times of people becoming enlightened like that because of something instantaneous. But Master Dogen concludes, these are all works in the house of Buddha ancestors. All of these things exist. This interplay between practice, realization, absolute, relative, us doing this and then doing that, seeing this and then not seeing it. All of this is part of the life of Buddha ancestors. All of this is part of our reality as practitioners. So as soon as he's done with this, Master Dogen actually goes into the koan that I wanted to touch on. I'm just going to read exactly what he says in the way he tells the story. When Nanyue visited his hut, Mazu stood up. Nanyue said, "What have you been doing these days?" Mazu replied, "I've been just sitting." Nanyue said, "What is your intention in just sitting?" To which Mazu replies, "I intend to become a Buddha." So Nanyue picks up a tile and starts polishing it on a stone near Mazu's hut. Mazu goes to him and says, "Master, what are you doing?" Nanyue responds, "Polishing a tile." To which Mazu asks, "Why are you polishing a tile?" And Nanyue responds, "I'm trying to make a mirror." Mazu comes back with, "How can you polish a mirror? How can you polish a tile and make a mirror?" To which Nanyue responds, "How can you do Zazen and become a Buddha?" This is the koan. And we've all heard of it or maybe even studied it at some point. It's a well-known story. Right after quoting this koan, Master Dogen says, people have been interpreting this great story for hundreds of years as Nanyue's encouragement to Mazu. It's not necessarily so. The activity of a great sage is far beyond ordinary understanding. So Master Dogen starts the conversation himself. He says, "Do you think you understand what this is about?" For centuries, people interpreted this to mean Nanyue was encouraging Mazu, keep practicing, Mazu, you're doing fine. But Master Dogen says, maybe you're not seeing all of it. And so, of course, we got to look closer at the story. So, allow me to take you back. And let's look at the story again, just expanding a little bit on it. Nanyue was Mazu's teacher. And Nanyue visited Mazu. Obviously, they were intimate with each other. They knew each other. So Nanyue visited Mazu at his hut. Mazu had been engaged in Zazen for a long, long time, which Nanyue obviously knew. But Nanyue says to him, "What have you been doing these days? How's your practice going? What has your practice been like?" Mazu responds, "I've been just sitting. Just sitting, shikantaza. I've been doing Zazen, basically. I've been fully engaged in Zazen, devoted myself to Zazen." And Nanyue, at that point, says, "What is your intention in just sitting?" I feel Nanyue wanted to figure out what the mind of Mazu was, what his understanding of the practice of shikantaza was. What clarity did he have regarding this practice that he was so devoted to? He'd been engaged in it for a long time. And Mazu responds without hesitation, "I intend to become a Buddha." Now, we know practice realization, shikantaza, is basically the act of sitting as Buddha, effectively embodying Buddha. I think safe to say both Nanyue and Mazu knew this. So Mazu's response was not off, right? With what mind, with what intention do you sit in Zazen? Because when I sit, I'm Buddha. I go to sit so that I sit as Buddha. We can look at it that way as his response. So notice that next, Nanyue doesn't really acknowledge, praise, or contradict Mazu. He doesn't say, oh, good, good, you're doing good. He doesn't say, oh, that's wrong. He doesn't say anything really at this point. He just goes outside, grabs a tile, starts polishing it next to Mazu's hut. He engages in a different practice. So Mazu, of course, his curiosity was at that point stirred, and he comes in and says, what are you doing? Nanyue says, I'm polishing a tile. I'm fully engaged in this activity of polishing the tile. This is the practice right now. Mazu asks, of course, why are you doing that? And Nanyue responds, I'm trying to make a mirror. Mazu then asks, how can you polish a tile and make a mirror? At this point, Mazu is saying basically, teacher, a tile is a tile and a mirror is a mirror. No matter how long you rub that tile, it will continue to be a non-reflective surface. It'll continue to be a tile. A mirror is a mirror. It reflects. What? There's clearly a difference, right, teacher, between a tile and a mirror. You'll never be able to get to that point. That's how I look at Mazu's question. How could you polish a tile and make it a mirror? And I think at that point, Nanyue realized what Mazu's mind or attitude or understanding was. Which is why he asks him, how can you do Zazen and become a Buddha? I think what he's saying is, if you find distinction between the tile and the mirror, and you think that the tile is not the mirror and they're separate and they're not one and the same thing, and you think that my polishing the tile is not actually me polishing the mirror, how can you say that you're sitting Zazen as Buddha? If you see separation here, you see separation here. If you don't see the wholeness here, if you don't see the oneness of tile and mirror, polishing tile, polishing mirror, are you actually sitting Zazen as Buddha? Are you actually sitting intending to become a Buddha? Intending to embody the Buddha? I think Nanyue is saying, if my tile is not the mirror, then Mazu sitting is not Buddha sitting. Do you see that, Mazu? I don't think he's saying you can't sit Zazen and expect to be Buddha. I think he's saying you're lacking that absolute certainty that you sitting there as Mazu is you sitting there as Buddha. Because you see distinction between my tile and the mirror. You also see distinction between deluded Mazu and enlightened Buddha. Of course, Nanyue here was acting as a teacher to Mazu. Master Dogen points that out right after this, quoting the story. He says, without polishing a tile, how can a great sage have the skillful means to make a true person? Right? Here he's saying the capacity of making a true person is the bones and marrow of Buddha ancestors. As far as I understand this, he's saying, without being able to point directly to polishing a tile equals polishing the mirror, sitting Zazen equals sitting as Buddha, delusion equals enlightenment. Enlightenment is delusion. Mirror is tile. Mazu is Buddha. You sitting Zazen is Buddha. Without being able to get to the core, the essence of it, one cannot reveal the true person, Master Dogen says. He then continues and says, indeed, at the moment the polished tile becomes a mirror, Mazu becomes Buddha. The second Mazu is able to see the oneness and wholeness of the tile that Nyanyo is polishing and the mirror that he's obtaining. The second that happens, Mazu also sees himself as Buddha. But Master Dogen continues, at the moment Mazu becomes a Buddha, Mazu immediately becomes Mazu. Once he sees, understands that sitting in Zazen is practice enlightenment, it's inevitable that Mazu will also understand that Mazu is also Mazu, with his delusions, with his struggles in life, with his limitations and problems. It's not that he overcame or left those behind. There's no need to abandon that in order to be Buddha. You already are Buddha. Mazu is already Buddha. And Mazu is then Mazu again. And Master Dogen concludes, at the moment Mazu becomes Mazu, when Mazu sees himself as the true person, understands the two sides of enlightenment and delusion, at that moment Zazen immediately is Zazen, is actualized. It's practice realization. And Master Dogen says next, thus, polishing a tile and turning it into a mirror has been maintained as the bones and marrow of ancient Buddhas. The ancient Buddha. Practice, realization, has been passed down. Wholeness, oneness, has been passed down to us. The realization and understanding of emptiness has been passed down to us. Relative and absolute, like two arrow points meeting in mid-air, has been passed down to us. The practice and the faith behind the practice have been passed down to us, says Master Dogen. These are the bones and the marrow, the essence of ancient Buddhas. And at the end of it all, Master Dogen concludes, thus polishing a tile is making a mirror. Don't create distinctions. Don't discriminate, and you see that the tile is already the mirror. And he gives us an encouragement. Those of you nowadays should also try to polish a tile to make a mirror. It will certainly be a mirror. You should try to practice with complete faith that this practice is complete, all that's needed, nothing to be added, nothing to be taken away from it. You should try sitting like that, and it will certainly be the mirror, Master Dogen says. If a tile does not become a mirror, he concludes, a human being does not become a Buddha. If there's distinction here, there's distinction here. If there's separation here, there's separation here. You can't have anything else. He says, if you look down at a tile as a lump of mud, you look down at a human being as a lump of mud. The tile, the mirror, you, me, Mazu, one thing. At the same time, I'm me and you're you and Mazu's Mazu and the tile is the tile. Not one, not two, but Master Doan says. If you look down at the tile as a lump of mud, you look down at a human being as a lump of mud. If a human has mind, a tile should have mind, he concludes. Again, don't separate. Understand the oneness before you can go back to seeing the tile as the tile and the mirror is the mirror. But the tile is also the mirror, and Mazu is also Mazu, and Mazu is Buddha. And us sitting is us deluded, but also us enlightened. There's no need to push this one aside, embrace the other one. No. Let the mirror reflect all of it. So I think the encouragement here is continue to sit Zazen. Continue to sit Zazen when you feel like you're the most deluded person. And continue to sit Zazen when you feel you've accomplished everything. Put it aside. Let go of that judgment of how can you polish the tile and make it a mirror. Continue polishing. It is all, as Master Dogen says, it is all the activities in the house of the Buddha ancestors. Everything has a place, as long as we continue to practice. And I think I'm going to stop here. Thank you for your time. Continue to polish the mirror or the tile.